Hello everyone, welcome to the Unwanted Jedi. We are going to be reading episode 4 today. Thank you for everyone who's returning to listen to the continuance of the story. Life with just myself and Master Kane was quiet. We were both quiet people, it seemed. It would take about 4 days to reach Naboo, and by day 2 I had a blueprint for Eric's new leg that he had no idea about. The concept was simple, by design simply because I didn't think Eric was the type to want anything flashy. Function and comfort were the primary concerns. The tech would need to attach to the nerves to allow him to completely control the leg without thinking too much about it. A medic would need to be the one to do the connections. I could build the thing, but the hookup was a complicated medical tech thing, and while tech I could handle, I wasn't trained in healing or surgical procedures. First aid, sure. Complicated procedures, not so much. However, this was the best possible choice for comfort and control. There were still a few details that I needed to figure out with hardware connections, but nothing I couldn't handle. Still, I would be able to start putting the physical components together soon. Master Kane had somehow, I wasn't about to ask, gotten a hold of the measurements I needed to match the prosthetic to Eric's natural leg. So now it was time to start putting it together. That would wait until tomorrow, though. Master Kane was moving forward with my lessons, and if I got started now, I would likely be late for that lesson. There were intrinsic abilities that most Jedi could focus through. Most were rather adept at healing or using the Force to enhance their swordsmanship. You didn't block blaster shots like that and not cut off your own limb in the process without a little help. There were reasons why regular citizens or soldiers couldn't wield a lightsaber after a while. Well, I suppose they could, but it wouldn't be the same. I put the design plans away in my desk, after giving them a last once-over. Everything should work, but the only way to really know was to put the pieces together. I pulled myself out of my head as I moved to my bedroom door. I glanced around as I moved about the ship towards the meditation room where all my lessons had been so far. It was strange walking around in a ship this size when there were only the two of us and a few droids on board. It wasn't a small vessel, and, at that moment, it was completely empty. From what I gathered, once I had my lightsaber and was really getting started on my training, Master Kane would be moved back into active service. I would just be joining him as I learned from him. It would be a challenge that I was looking forward to. Until I had my lightsaber, though, I was basically unarmed. So, until then, he would be helping me hone my Force abilities. Like any other student at the academy, I could do some basic things. Mostly move rocks, Force push, summoning items to me, stuff like that. To go further, though, many Jedi had specializations such as healing or mind manipulation. Master Kane specialized in elemental manipulation. Lifting a rock or moving boulders wasn't quite the same as his specialization. He could, if he wanted, completely reshape an entire landscape. I was hoping to do the same thing. Ah, good. You are already here. For today, let's start what you are already able to do and start there. I assume you can levitate small items already? Master Kane asked as he came into the room. Yes, levitation, force push, and summoning, I answered rather simply. Excellent. Let's see how many of these you can keep going at once, he said, pulling a small bag of what I could only guess were marbles from his robe. Okay, I replied, ready to show him what I could do. He started with one. The marble was made of glass, and you could fit about 4 comfortably in your palm. They were completely clear. He worked slowly as I managed one extra marble at a time. I was able to reach about 15 before there were too many small points to focus on at a time and they started to drop. I was rather pleased as it was. The last time I had done this exercise at the academy a few weeks ago, I was only able to do 10. A good start. Let's see how many you can keep going while they are in movement. Rotate them around you as you keep them levitated, he instructed. That was new, all right. I kept my focus as once again, one marble at a time. I started rotating the marbles around me. This was quite a bit harder since I had to focus on 2 things at once while keeping as many glass marbles going as I could. I only made it to 8 this time. The lesson continued like this for about an hour. Each attempt, Master Kane would add a different challenge. moving the marbles in different configurations and seeing how long I could keep them airborne. After about an hour, though, I was getting mentally tired. I was more than determined to keep going, but it seemed Master Kane was more than prepared to stop and move on to something else. "Excellent work. You did well. I'll be able to see where to go from here. For now, we should break for lunch before we move on. I'd like to see how you are at hand-to-hand combat. You'll need your energy for that," Master Kane announced. I sighed a bit in relief. I didn't mind force work, but the Academy never tested us on it like this, changing the challenge with every attempt and with multiple targets at once. Of course, I expected training to be harder at this point, but nothing prepares you for the sudden ramp-up in difficulty. I could only imagine that combat would be equally more difficult. I could tell I would sleep well for the next few nights. Lunch was a light affair, and that was fine. Anything heavy would make sparring more difficult than necessary. Having only sparred with Shiku recently, and before that only other students, I was a bit nervous about sparring with a literal master. Master Kane had more years of experience than I had years of life. At 42, he had trained 3 students before me, while also having an almost spotless service record with the Republic military. He was an incredible tactician and powerful force user as well. Sparring with him as a new student would be a case of futility on my part, but the amount I could learn was astronomical. After all, your worst lesson is always your first. You can only get better by trying again. Once back in the meditation room, there wasn't much talking. Master Kane had removed his outer robe before we both took defensive stances. Master Kane was every bit the master he was titled. No amount of observation showed me any kind of tell before he moved, and he moved very fast. Each sparring match was punctuated by small improvements. He would correct something and then take advantage of something else. I ended up on the floor quite a bit and didn't get even one tap in. Again, we went for about an hour. I was more than ready to call it quits for the night. Not that we were done. Jedi training included far more than combat. There was also a lot of studying regarding Jedi history and philosophy, strategy, force study, cultural studies, and just to top it off, military studies. While the basics of Republic law were taught at the Academy, most of what each Jedi worked with depended on what they specialized in. You have some work to do with sparring, but you have a good foundation. You should be able to improve rather quickly. You will have your work cut out for you, though. I'll give you some drills to help you. You'll want to work on your balance and stances before we work with your lightsaber. I think that's enough for today. Shall we move on?" Master Kane said as I righted myself again. "Yes, Master," was all I could say as I was still breathless from the last drop to the floor, having landed squarely on my back. Once we were settled again, Master Kane pulled the cushions back out so we could sit. Apparently we were covering philosophy today. Covering the Jedi Code was a reasonable place to start. I could, of course, quote the code by heart at this point. The code was embossed in small tapestries across the Academy and was quoted often. "There is no emotion, there is peace. There is no ignorance, there is knowledge. There is no passion, there is serenity. There is no chaos, there is harmony. There is no death, there is the Force." Still, Master Kane broke down each section. He spoke of how the code shaped every Jedi, if in different ways. How true understanding would bring about the kind of calm that brought enlightenment. How it was a journey every single day to live up to what the code stood for. We were people. We would make mistakes. We would stumble. But we held ourselves to the standard for the sake of the galaxy as a whole. How that standard caused others to view us as flawless individuals, even when we were just as capable of making mistakes as everyone else. It was a heavy responsibility to carry the legacy of every Jedi that came before, while also creating the legacy that future Jedi would one day carry. It was a delicate balance. The legacy was a heavy burden, but worth carrying, improving the worlds around us over the course of generations. I went to bed that night with my head in a daze. I was exhausted, but my mind was buzzing. There was so much to being a Jedi, and it was a lot to think about. Still, I fell asleep almost instantly. My body just wouldn't stay awake. The next 2 days were just the same. force training just before lunch, then sparring, then regular studies until supper, at which point we would have our meditation time. Then I would pretty much crash into bed without much preamble. It was exhausting, but rewarding. I had no issues with the difficult training schedule Master Kane seemed to keep. I might feel different in another week, but for now it was fine. I had free time every morning, and I used it to continue building the mechanical leg for Eric and test the wires as I went to make sure everything was working properly. Still, it wasn't like it looked like a leg yet. That morning, though, we arrived at our destination. I went with Master Kane up to the control room. It was strange to see Naboo again. The planet was no different than I remembered it. We turned slightly in to move towards the spaceport, the swamps, forests, and cities coming into sharp focus. I could see the capital city as we began to approach. We flew past the farming fields on the outskirts of the capital city as we got closer. From the high elevation, I could just make out the Queen's Palace at the city center. Theed was beautiful and lush as I remembered. Vine-covered white buildings with stunning columns, and I could already picture the lively market square. It was strange how much I remembered. I had spent the last few years not even thinking about my home planet. I could just remember off the top of my head the path I took from my father's villa to the market. I could even remember the jagged rock that looked like a dragon on the beach by the family's favorite lake spot. Whatever nerves I had managed to ignore the last few days came back in full force. I really did not want to get off this ship. I was prepared to feel the unease about returning, but this was full onset anxiety. If Master Kane noticed, and I was certain he had, he was kind enough not to say anything. I grabbed the removable sleeves from my robe out of my room and put them on. I wanted to hide the way my hands were shaking. Suddenly, the long flowing sleeves didn't seem so annoying. I put my hair up as well, a practical ponytail with no flourish, simple and easy. I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror as I was about to leave my room again. I clearly looked uneasy. I closed my eyes a moment and took a deep breath. I forced my facial expression into a neutral appearance. No matter what, I wasn't going to stay here again. Nothing was going to change the trajectory of my life at this point. I opened my eyes again. The anxiety was still there, but at least I could breathe for now. I took one more deep breath before rejoining Master Kane at the exit door. He simply gave me a look. I nodded. I was okay. I would be fine. Honestly, I didn't know what to expect, but just like landing at the Republic space station, we just checked in. Technicians started the regular maintenance. Workers scurried about, doing whatever. A few other travelers were talking off to the side. Honestly, other than the building materials being different and the Naboo flag flying next to the Republic flag outside, nothing was different. Only thing was, I had no idea what the plan was from here. I had no idea how long we would be here, or where we were staying, or anything. I looked around, trying to see if anything was different. Not much had really changed. There was an embassy building just off the spaceport, which I was sure had been built after Naboo annexed into the Republic, but that was about it. I followed Master Kane through the streets as we made our way around. We ended up in a taxi. I didn't know where we were going until we pulled up next to the palace. The white pillars and blue sea glass ceiling were a stunning work of architecture built on the side of a cliff that fell into a stunning forest. The lakes and rivers falling into clear waterfalls. The glinting, silver-plated door handles with intricately carved solid wood doors made for a stunning entrance. Republic tapestries hung next to the Naboo crest high on the entry wall. I continued to follow silently as we made our way across the courtyard. The gardens were perfectly manicured with one massive fountain dead center. We were welcomed without much preamble. We were expected. Lovely. The silver and blue rugs masked our footsteps as we made our way around. I knew where we were going now. Introductions were being made to the Queen herself. I knew the moment we made it to the doors of the throne room. I was sure I also knew at least one other person beyond that door. The throne room was set up exactly as I remembered it. The queen's chair was at the end, directly in the center. The counselor chairs set up around in a circle, allowing everyone to see each other without leaning forward. No one was really seated at the moment. Off to the side, speaking with a few of her counselors, was Queen Kalora Santi, the current Queen of Naboo. She wore a stunning flowing gown in an iridescent purple. Her hair, a golden blonde color, was tied in an intricate knot against her head. The silver jewelry with purple sea glass pressed in was an elegant touch. She had stayed staunchly unmarried. She had no interest in getting married. So alone she stood, her headpiece a dainty and simple piece, showing her status in a modest but powerful way. Around her were advisers and a small woman with a deep frown, who I recognized as Naboo's sitting representative in the Senate. She was Naboo's first sitting senator, though I had never actually spoken to her. Queen Kalora was the one to notice us first as we stepped into the room. "Hello, you must be Master Kane. We are honored to host you and your Padawan. Welcome to Naboo. And welcome back, of course," she said, approaching us. Her voice was a light trill. She walked with the kind of grace that many women aspired to. Her eyes were as blue as the sea glass adorning the ceiling. "Thank you for your hospitality, Your Highness. It is a pleasure to make your acquaintance," Master Kane answered as I finally snapped out of my head. "Thank you, Your Highness," I said, offering a small bow. "I'm glad to see you return to Naboo. It seems you've grown quite a bit while away. Your family will be glad to see you, I'm sure. Your father isn't here yet, though I believe he's on his way. Until then, please join us. We'll be having an early lunch." Queen Kalora was just as kind and soft-spoken as I remembered, though I had only met her a handful of times. She had this soft sort of authority that was different from most nobles. She reminded me of someone who would have been a good mother if she had been so inclined. She wasn't so inclined. "We would be pleased to join you," Master Kane stepped in, taking the direct attention off me, which I appreciated. I wasn't much interested in the world of politics and the niceties that felt disingenuous, especially when I could feel the anxiety coming back, knowing the one person I wasn't sure I ever wanted to see again was on his way here. Lunch was an extravagant affair, as I had expected it would be. There was a huge market for the fruits grown on Naboo, and the farms were massive. It was the primary galactic market from Naboo, so of course the spread had a ton of local fruits and small sandwiches and fruit drinks. It was elaborate, but it was at least healthy. Conversation flowed casually around me. I was far more interested in eating for now. It was around the time that lunch wrapped up that he walked in. A few years of not seeing him didn't change much. My father was exactly as I remembered him. 7 years had added a few gray hairs, but he was just as immaculately dressed as he always was. His hair was slicked back, and he wore a serious expression that was standard for him as long as I had known him. His red robes with glinting gold trim and patterned black shirt was pressed into perfection, the look of perfection that he always strove for. "My apologies for being late, Your Highness. I rushed as soon as I heard we had visitors." My father's voice was deep and calm. He didn't appear to have rushed in the slightest. He hadn't even looked in my direction. "It's no problem. You weren't even meant to be here today, but when I heard who would be here, I thought you would want to know." Queen Kalora spoke softly. It was like she was comforting and reprimanding him at the same time. I got the impression that this wasn't the first conversation about our impending visit that they had had. I watched, detached. Any feeling I had seemed numb now, like I wasn't even there anymore. I might as well not have been. "Of course, Naboo is proud of her achievements, as I am." He was lying. He hadn't looked in my direction still. Our familial connection was obvious, as I was the physical copy of my father in female form. I was the only one that took after him, so it was clear that he cared very little for anything other than appearances. "Yes, your daughter's achievements are incredible." Queen Kalora seemed to have taken issue with my father at some point. I just wanted to leave. This was awkward. I would have preferred another sparring lesson over this. The sea glass ceiling was suddenly incredibly interesting. I had no desire to watch my father get verbally flayed. even in the gentlest voice possible. "Indeed. To what we owe the honor of your visit, Master Kane." My father's gaze finally shifted away from the Queen. He looked directly at Master Kane, once again refusing to look in my direction. "We are here as part of Zix's training. Building her own lightsaber is an important step at this point of her education," Master Kane answered diplomatically. He didn't go into any real detail, like he was fishing for some kind of reaction. "I see. Please let us know if there's anything we can help with." Tinu Connolly, my father, the ever-perfect image. I couldn't stand his fake generosity. I took one last bite of fruit from my plate, the fork scraping slightly, a purposeful move on my part to cut the tension. "We only need a quiet place where I can continue her training. The rest we will handle ourselves." "Thank you for your generosity," Master Kane answered, though the moment was broken already. Master Kane stood from the table. I moved to follow without a word. "We will of course accommodate anything you may need," Queen Calora stated from her place at the table, also standing. I couldn't be sure as we left, but it looked like there was some kind of emotion behind her eyes I couldn't quite place. Master Kane nodded and turned to leave. I hurried after him. I didn't bother to turn back. I couldn't tell what was going through Master Kane's mind as we went through the halls out to the garden. We kept going until we found ourselves in a quiet part of the garden on the edge of the property. Perfectly manicured grass slowly turning into trees. Here he stopped and turned to me. "Are you all right?" he asked. Was I all right? I was more worried about him. My father's actions were nothing I wasn't prepared for. He had always been a cold man, more politically savvy than fatherly. I already knew this. "It's nothing. Father has always been like that. He cares a great deal about his political image. I doubt he was interested in coming today. He only greeted us to protect his image. I'm surprised he didn't bring my brothers. It would have looked better to have a full reunion," I said, now sure I was right. I may have been only a small child when I had last seen him, but I had plenty of time to reflect on the past. I had, mostly, come to terms with it. "Then, as traumatic as it may have been, I'm glad the Jedi took you in. You are worth more than such unnecessary maneuvers." I was stunned. This was different than I was used to from Master Kane. "Master, you seem upset." I was unsure how this was going to go. Why would I need anything from him? He gave me up without question for his own image. I don't need him. Not when I have your support. The fact is, I didn't sever ties I had to my home. He did. "I am glad then. Still, we should work off this energy. We should keep our training schedule as much as possible. I believe a quick sparring session would be good for both of us. Let's see what you can do," he announced. Alrighty guys, that was the end of episode 4. Episode 5 should be released soon. No promises on how soon. However, for now, that is the end of the chapter. We shall see you guys next time.